Welcome back to Deeper with the Dolan Twins. I'm your host, Ethan. And I'm your other host, Grayson Dolan. I'm doing it better than you are. No, you're not. You just left me with only my name to say. Well, that's all you leave me with. All right, well, let me pick up. On this episode of Deeper, we have guest Damien Mander, a man who has done it all. And by
literally
all,
done it all.
I mean, every amazing and highly accomplished thing that you could think of. He has been a naval diver, which is the Australian equivalent of a U.S. Navy SEAL, which when Navy SEALs are tested here in America, there's 1,000 people to begin with, and only 2 or 3 make it. And after experiencing that, eat, sleep, and breathing that lifestyle, to going back home and not being at war anymore, what that shift was like for him.
We talk a little bit about systemic toxic masculinity and how Damien has combated that in his life. And how it was an issue for him early on. And
We talk about
how it led to becoming vegan and now owning an organization that gives females opportunities to be wildlife rangers.
Yes, he's doing a lot to combat the oppression of women. He's doing a lot to defend vulnerable animals. And he's an amazing man. We really appreciate the conversation that he came and had with us. Without further ado, here's the episode.
We appreciate you coming on.
Yes, thanks a lot for joining us
very
today.
much.
So how's the weather in Zimbabwe?
I'm in Tanzania at the moment. Yeah, it's all the same. It's hot, it's warm, sticky.
Is it consistently like that all year round?
Like if you go up into the Zambezi Valley where we do a lot of our work, yeah, it's pretty warm, man. Cooking. I think you guys have got the whole Fahrenheit thing going on.
I know Celsius
like 45 degrees.
45.
Like 110 for you guys.
Yeah, 45's up there. That's
So if you see me patting down, it's just because I'm sweating it up.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much for coming on.
So I was just, obviously your operations and everything are multifaceted, and I just kind of, when browsing the internet and reading up on you, I couldn't really figure out what exactly your title was. You've just done so much. So what do you consider yourself, I guess?
I mean, now, yeah, fair call. I've worn a few hats. I'm 41. Now I'm the founder and the CEO of the International Anti-Poaching Foundation, but I've got a few previous lives before me. Initially as a clearance diver in the Royal Australian Navy, which is our version of the SEALs. And then after September 11, the Australian government formed what they termed the first last resort for terrorist attack on home soil, a unit called Tactical Assault Group East, which was under the Special Operations umbrella. So I went across there initially as a diver, naturally being a diver, and then been there a couple of days and told them I'm going across to do sniper's course. So then I went along as a sniper.
And so after doing a bit of reading, we found that you started that journey at 19 years old. So you became what Americans would call a Navy SEAL, a naval diver in Australia at 19.
Well, yeah, I started the process of going through the selection courses, and yeah, shit, guys. We let us swear on this program. I'm Australian, sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
I lose half my material. So yeah, no, I mean the selection programs to get into that course is, I mean, there's very few things that will strip you bare as an individual, to your soul, to see who you are as a person, and that's, most people don't get through it. Exposed to the 4 pillars of misery, to be hungry, cold, tired, and wet for extended periods of time, sleep deprivation, and honestly, most of it, I'd say 80% it's mental, 20% physical. I mean, obviously you have to be extremely fit to get through there, but it's a mind fuck. It really is. They're designed to. These are the only courses in the military that you're designed to fail. And once they break it, they build you back up into what they need.
Wow, sounds life-changing. So, are you able to talk about some of the things that you had to do in that admission process?
Yeah, so I came through what's called CDAT, Clearance Diver Acceptance Test, which is our version of Hell Week. Only goes for 12 days. I came through that. It was late 1999. Hey, so it was actually before a lot of the occupational health and safety stuff came in. Oh. So there's stuff now that you have to get a certain amount of hours sleep at night, and that. But I would say over those 12 days, we average between 1 and 2 hours sleep a night. Going all day, every day. Burning just phenomenal amounts of calories. Hardly sleeping. I went for 3 days without pissing, just because my body was so continuously hydrated. I couldn't put as much into my body as what I was sweating out. You'd be going all day doing one thing, and then you go to bed. You've been in bed for an hour, and you get up, and you're given 2 minutes to be ready, dressed, waiting on the railway line. And you go up to, and they're called dress number 2 in the wetsuit with your fins, and you're about to go off for like a 6-mile swim. And you got to get in your wetsuit and realize it's in the freezer and they've all been frozen, and you're trying to get in there. And in the middle of winter, just mental, just shit that mentally fucks with you. They'll sit there, they'll dress number 1, which is your PT gear, so your shirt, shorts, and runners with a drink bottle. Dress number 2, wetsuit and things. Dress number 3, overalls and boots. And they'll just stand you there for hours saying dress number 1, 30 seconds. And you race to get out of whatever you're into that. They'll say dress number 3, 1 minute, go. And they just do that for hours and hours. And guys are just like, fuck, I can't deal with this. And all you're doing is getting dressed and undressed. But when you do that, they're throwing sand in all your wetsuits, sand in all your gears. Every time you're doing it, and you're freezing cold. You're standing out. You're wet, you're cold. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. So when I joined the Navy too, this is an interesting thing. So I grew up with childhood asthma, and obviously when you join the military, if you really want to get in, you're not supposed to get in. You tell them what they want to hear, not the truth. So I obviously didn't declare that I had asthma, and actually still had it when I went for this selection program. And at the beginning of it, you get strip searched for everything, making sure you're not hiding anything or taking anything on this course. And I managed to hide my Ventolin inhaler in one of my packs. But then we go for this 6-hour run. It's called the gate to gate. You just keep going back and forth. And I had this Ventolin inhaler stuffed under my balls. And then we get down to the end of the run, and there's a boat waiting there with all scuba equipment there. And they say, okay, everyone on the boat. And the boat goes out into the middle of the harbour. It's all lit, everything. You're getting dressed. You're just diving in your PT gear, in your shirt and shorts. And so there's no chance to get changed or hide shit or anything like that. And then they're literally in the water. You're getting dragged down. You're going down, down, down. And I've got this Ventolin inhaler under my manhood. And I'm thinking, if I pull this out and try and throw it away, then 1, I don't have it. 2, someone might see it. It means I'm off course. 3, if I leave it under there, the pressures that I'm going to, is this thing going to explode? If it explodes, I'm fucked anyway. So I left it there and took the chances. But, these are the sort of stuff that you go through if you're committed to wanting to do something. So,
yeah, that is commitment. I also had asthma growing up pretty severely, and I just want to say that it's no joke. It's like sometimes your inhaler can legitimately save your life. I've been in a situation where I didn't have my inhaler, and I was just like, I couldn't even sleep without it. So, when you have to do these insane physically demanding, things, you do need something like your inhaler if you have asthma. And so that's,
man. The last thing in the world you should be doing with asthma is a selection course to become a Navy diver. So but I got through it fortunately, and here I am.
You talked about being committed, and obviously that's commitment. Were you committed to the idea of being a Navy diver before you went in, and taking into account all the things that you'd possibly have to go through, or were you kind of just like blindly walking into it, not too aware of what was actually before you? So
the original idea or seed to become a Navy diver started. So when I was a kid, I was a naughty little shit. And we would dare each other to steal stuff from shops and stuff. 12 years old, 13 years old, we figured that if we go and steal the fishing lures, the calamari fishing lures from the fishing shop, and take them down to the fishing wharf or the pier, we could sell them back for $5 each. So that became good money, and I realized all the calamari fishermen fishing through the night. And so if you want to get the most lures, you get down there first thing in the morning. So I'd get up in the freezing cold, I'd go down there initially in like a 1 millimeter thick spring suit, wetsuit, and go down there and collect all these lures, go to, sell them back, go to school, and get $30-40 instead of $5 or $10. That's good money when you're 13 years old. And then started using all this money to put myself through dive courses and buy better diving gear, stay down there longer, again, make more money. And then just grew up, just had a passion for the water. And I mean, there's some summers there, I promise I spend more time in the water than out. And that, for a kid that grows up passionate about diving and in the water, the ultimate job in the world is to be a Navy diver. And that's where the seed was planted.
Wow.
And what part of Australia did you grow up in?
So the first sort of 10 years in Sydney. And then when parents eventually separated, back down to Melbourne. And so this was the first 10 years in Sydney, second 10 years or 9 years in Melbourne. Yeah.
That's New South Wales, right? Is it both?
That'd be like saying, it is New South Wales, Sydney. It'd be like saying sort of probably LA to San Diego type. And actually not that far. LA.
Okay.
To San Diego to San Francisco type.
Gotcha. The water is colder down there, I'll have people know. I went up to Queensland and the water is a little bit warmer, so you were diving in the cold stuff. For those
down there in winter, hey, the water's like 8 degrees. So it's again, you get the whole Fahrenheit thing going. So
yeah,
it's
8.
cold.
I'm trying to think
just
what that
it's
is.
Cold.
Yeah, that's probably like 40 something, which is like unbelievably
bone-rattling
cold. It's like an ice bath.
That's sort of cold when you get in. You're like, oh, your ice cream headache. Freeze type thing. Yeah,
you forget how to breathe.
I saw in an interview of yours, you spoke pretty candidly about being picked on at school. And do you think that had something to do with your passion for joining the forces?
Well, it was weird, hey, and I do these podcasts or interviews and stuff. In a way, it's sort of like therapy. It's talking about stuff, getting shit off your chest, off your shoulders.
That's how we feel. That's how we started.
I think it was last year, the year before, I was doing of all things, an interview for a Czech fashion magazine. And this woman's like, she's, tell us, where did this whole macho sort of attitude come from? And I'd never actually thought about it until then. And it was when my parents first split up and I changed schools and, went to a new school, it's like the new kid and just got picked on every day. And I'm a big dude now, like 6'3" and about 240. But I didn't grow up as a big kid. And just going to this school and getting picked on every day, and then just going home with all the buttons ripped off your shirt and black eyes and blood lips and that. And I never really thought back to it until then. And then I remember after that, just never wanting to be in that position again. And I just tried to become a sort of hard-nosed, badass little dude, but then it sort of gained momentum, and I sort of had a persona that I had to try and fulfill, maybe in my eyes, maybe in the eyes of everyone I thought I was trying to impress, or just keep this image. And that sort of fed through my football career. I played Australian football. It's like your version of football, but without all the helmet and the shoulder pads and all that stuff.
Yeah, the badass version.
It's like rugby, but going in any direction. And I was a hard player. And then hunting. As soon as I got old enough to buy guns, I was buying guns and hunting animals. And again, not for any other reason than to try and get some form of primal respect from my peers. And this was all sort of this circular feeding into this image of that I was trying to maintain of this tough, hard guy. And then, as a hard dude or wanting to be this macho dude, going into the Navy and becoming a diver, that's sort of fulfilling the dream,
So once you did fulfill that dream, was it what you imagined it to be? Was it as fulfilling as you thought it was going to be?
It was always frustrating, hey, frustrating and confusing, because you always sort of try and chase this ego, and enough was never enough. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was time or experience or what it was, but just 3 years in Iraq, going over there and seeing a country and a culture and a people flattened and obliterated, and knowing that you're part of the system that was sent there to do that. Time and reflection, we're all a product of our past, but time and reflection will give you the standpoint to look back on not only who you are, but or who you were, but who you are. And I suppose at a certain point, you either grow up or you don't. And the biggest part to either doing one or not doing it is self-reflection and being able to analyze or audit yourself. At a certain point, I didn't want to maintain the charade anymore, or I just wanted to be honest about who I was and what I stand for. That also came at a time when I'd finished Iraq, my time over there. I'd come from being a part of these small knit units where literally it's like a brotherhood. The people, you guys know, and more than anyone, what a brotherhood is about. And the person next to you cares about your life more than you care about yourself, and you've got purpose and mission for whatever that's worth. And then all of a sudden you don't. And not only did not have, imagine if I grabbed one of you guys today and said, all right, just one, you're not hanging out with Ethan anymore, and two, you can go off and just start your own thing, and that's what it's like, but multiplied by like 10 or 20, because that's the sort of brothers, the amount of brothers that you have around you, and when you lose that, and then you lose the purpose and the mission, trying to reintegrate back into society, it's tough, and that was sort of the beginning of my downward spiral, a year in South America, and what initially started out as this reward for myself. I'd just done, served in some of the most elite military units there are, survived 3 years in Iraq, done very well, from a soldier's standpoint financially. And then, I thought, off to South America, and what, started as a holiday became a very sort of drug and alcohol fueled year of my life. And it was that downward spiral and really bottoming out that I suppose sort of was the beginning of me trying to figure out what next.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even imagine, like, when you're serving, especially at the level that you did it was, more than 24/7. You're not only like eat, sleep, and breathe, what you're doing, but you're probably even dreaming about it. Like, it's just all the time. And to just go from that to, you're back home now. You're in an entirely new environment. There's probably culture shock even coming back home to where you're from.
Yeah, and then also not having your brothers, like you mentioned, just lacking that companionship. And
so that downward spiral is something that I can't even imagine. Coming from what you did to just the entire exact opposite. Yeah. When you look back now, though, are you grateful that you kind of had that moment where you felt like you broke, or maybe you spiraled downward, and was that was the time you realized?
Yeah, I don't have regrets, I don't hold grudges. These are all the products of the past that have made me who I am today, and it's not all pretty. It's not peaches and cream. It is what it is, and I can only play with the cards I've been dealt, and this is my life to date. And if I hadn't been through that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So I've just got to own it, and that's the thing too. We get so wrapped around the axles sometimes with the past, instead of just worrying about using that as a lesson. And we can't change the past. It's the reason we've got eyes in the front of our head and not the back, so we can look forward. And the problem becomes when you don't use a mistake from the past as a lesson to change or shape how you're going to be in the future. If you look at nature as an example, nature's had billions of years to evolve. Evolution is the cutting away the bits that don't work and the retention of the bits that do. And as humans, we don't have billions of years. We have a handful of decades at best, a handful of decades to shape and define who we are, to cut away the bits that don't work, retain the bits that do, learn from our mistakes and grow. And every day I don't worry about the day before something that might have gone wrong. I just make sure I learn from it. And the rule is try not to make the same mistakes twice. And if you do, for fuck's sake, don't make it a third time. And that's pretty much it. If you just keep doing that, honestly, the ingredient to, you guys would know, the ingredient to success is perseverance. If you're determined to do something, don't fucking let anything stand in your way.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone or anything stand in your way. And most things fail because people give up.
Yeah.
Most things fail because people give up. Most things succeed because people don't fucking give up. And it's the same thing in the military. In that course, going through the Hell Week, there was nothing special about me. I wasn't stronger or fitter or smarter than anyone else. But when everyone else said it was fucking too hard or it couldn't be done, it was too cold or I'm too tired or fucking thirsty, I was standing there going, I'm not fucking giving up regardless. And that was the difference. And I'm telling you, it's the difference on course, the difference getting into that unit, it's the difference in life.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that if you don't give something, like if you have a goal and you know what it takes to achieve it, everyone kind of has a sense of what it's going to take to achieve their goal. I always said, if you just don't give it that chance of not happening, then it will happen. You have to do every single thing that you need to do to achieve it. And the only way that you're not going to achieve it is by not doing something that you need to do. So you're at this point where you get to, I don't want to call it rock bottom, but it sounds like you hit, the very bottom, and then you started to have this realization of, what's next. And what was next at that point for you? What were your thoughts at that moment?
I ended up in Bolivia after several months of travel. I read a book called Marching Powder. It's about a maximum security prison in La Paz, the capital of Bolivia, San Pedro. The best cocaine in the world was produced inside that prison. You could pay to go in there and live with prisoners, foreigners that were there for trying to smuggle cocaine. So that seemed like a romantic adventure, and go and spend some time there. And I did, and then from there up to Colombia, and then on to Panama. By the time I got to Panama, I was cooked. It was not I left Iraq at about 240, 250 pounds, good shape, and I probably lost 60 pounds by the time I left South America. And I left there, quickly went back to Australia, tried to regroup, get my shit together, go a bit of home cooking with mum,
Yeah.
And I'd heard about anti-poaching maybe as far back as a decade earlier, running around the bush in Africa and protecting animals and hunting poachers. And it sounded like this romantic adventure, like a Wilbur Smith novel type thing. And that sort of became the focus point for potentially the next chapter. But again, it was this a selfishly driven chapter looking inwards, similar to the previous two chapters, joining the military for adventure, not to serve my country. I might have served my country, but it was about adventure. Iraq was about making money. I made a hell of a lot of money over there. Australian military is one of the highest paid militaries in the world, and then working as a mercenary, getting up to almost $250,000 a year US, tax-free dollars. And then Africa was about looking for a fight, not a cause. So yeah, it was that was it. It was just going to be a 6-month thing for me about getting my next fucking social media pictures, so everyone could go, look what Damien's doing now. For a dude that's done, our version of SEALs, then been a sniper, then done 3 years in Iraq, and then done a year in South America, staying in maximum security prison and traveling around some of the most craziest places on the continent. What the fuck's left? Africa was it. It was the next frontier, and I didn't know what it had in store for me.
Wow. So you spoke about hunting growing up. So what was the appeal to you? Was the appeal just basically for the adventure and kind of feeling like you're living in a movie?
For anti-poaching.
When you moved into anti-poaching, because you had this background in kind of hunting growing up.
Well, interestingly, I was never allowed to touch a gun growing up, and it wasn't until my 18th birthday that I went out and bought one. And yeah, I suppose there might be a lesson in there. Kids are not allowed to touch something growing up, and then becomes, not allowed to touch a gun, and becomes a sniper. I think it was just part of this whole persona I was trying to fulfill. This charade that I was trying to play, and this hollowness that I was trying to fill up, and it was just part of the image, man. I actually don't even like guns. It's funny, when I come over this, I spend a lot of time, usually about 3 months a year in the States, pre-COVID. You go down to Texas and people just want to talk about guns, and it's like, dude, it's like talking to a mechanic about spanners, sockets, and shit. It's a tool to do a job, and I actually guns don't fascinate me. I'm not excited by them or anything. In the military, growing up, and once I finished the hunting stuff, and I never hunted again after Iraq. I knew what it was like to be hunted, but once you use guns as much as for what we had to use them for, the novelty wears off pretty quickly. At least for me. But this is the only option we have, unfortunately. So we hope for the best. We have to prepare for the worst in the training of our rangers. But I can put my hand up and say, in the last decade, I've probably shot less than 100 rounds.
Wow. So you said that in Iraq, you knew what it was like to be hunted, and that's when things started to kind of change for you about hunting.
Yes, I mean, we were running multiple missions, and initially in around Baghdad, then down to southern Iraq. We're involved with training the Iraqi National Police. From there back up to northern Baghdad, stone's throw from Adamir, which is the Shiite stronghold there. It's in Sada City. It was pretty hectic.
So, do you think that knowing what it's like to kind of be a target and be hunted has given you empathy for the animals that you are protecting now, and because you kind of know what it's like?
It's definitely given me a certain angle or perspective. It's not the reason I do what I do. There's a number of factors that feed into who we are and what we do, and that's just something that's helped shape my past. It's something that at least drew a line in the sand for me in regards to not wanting to do something that I had done in the past before, along with several other factors. But it is. It's the thing is too. Like animals don't want a car or a house or a paycheck or a fancy suit or anything. Animals just want to live, and we as a species, we continually take that away from them. And I suppose coming over to Africa after being in Iraq, seeing animals just trying to go about their life, drinking water or going out feed, trying to protect their young, and then getting a heavy caliber bullet ripping through flesh and bone and killing it, something the size of a truck for something you can hold in one hand. It makes you ashamed as a human being.
I definitely agree with that. It's Grayson and I have been vegan for over a year now, and our vegan,
V-gangsters.
V-gangsters, let's go. It's crazy because I was pretty anti-vegan before I went vegan, as most of us were. And funny enough,
why are you guys vegan?
Yeah, it actually began with kind of like a hunting story. That was, again, that angle of perspective that you're talking about as well. We live in New Jersey on on some acreage. That's where our mom lives, and we grew up. And we have some deer that come in the backyard pretty much every morning, and they're just out in our backyard grazing, minding their own business. And I have a friend who hunts, and I have a lot of friends who hunt actually growing up. But we met up with one of our friends who hunts, and we were gonna go hunting in my backyard because it's legal there. It was in season. He had his license, and I was like, oh, it's legal. There's no problem with this. A lot of people do it. So we get out to the backyard, and I'm thinking about this and looking at these deer, and really thinking about taking their life away. And I just realized it's I have absolutely zero necessity to do this. I'm not hungry. I can go in my mom's fridge and I can eat whatever I want. I don't need this animal to feed my family or anything like that. I was just going to do it for sport or for fun. And then I thought about all the sports that I've played, and a sport is when everybody who's involved knows that it's a game and has an equal shot at winning. And that's not what this situation was at all. So I go back inside, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hunt. I can't kill this animal. There's no way I'm doing this. And I thought about going out to get some food later on. And I was like, all right, well, if I go and I eat a burger, that's made from cow flesh, what different is that? You know what I mean? The animal was still killed, but it wasn't me doing the killing. And I can't even do the killing. I'm paying someone else to do my dirty work. And I've never wanted to consider myself a hypocrite. So in that moment, I realized that, if I was going to continue to eat animals, then I was a hypocrite, according to my own logic. So
you're almost basically a decade ahead of what I was. So yeah, thank you guys. Well done. It's I suppose if there's one thing I could change in my life, it was that I opened my eyes a little earlier.
Yeah.
Likewise, opened my eyes, my heart, my conscience.
Likewise.
Like you said, you wanted to fill this macho persona, and I think like the way that the animal industry markets their food and stuff like that, it kind of is like
it feeds into that ego.
It feeds into that ego of someone that's trying to be a macho man, and you get all this protein from meat and you put like hot sauce on your wings and you're a man. But and that's the way I thought, and I worked out pretty much my whole life for a good portion of it because I was involved in like contact sports and things like that. So I was always trying to be the biggest I could be, the strongest I could be, and I thought that meat was the only way that I could be as big as I could. And with little research, really, I realized that there's an alternative to absorbing those nutrients, such as protein. But like I had the same experience as Ethan. We were going hunting together, and we kind of had this conversation amongst each other, and we had this realization. And from that day on, it kind of just like it clicked, and we were vegan ever since.
It doesn't matter who you are, if you're a scholar or a street fighter. Nobody wants to be fooled, hey? Yeah. Nobody wants to be fooled. And we all got fooled, hey? We all got fooled by these marketing machines, the same marketing machines that sold fucking cigarettes to pregnant ladies by using sports stars and stuff in the 50s and 60s. The same marketing machine has been behind the meat industry, and it's made us think that we need this shit to be a man, that we need this shit to be macho, to be healthy. And I mean, the way I look at it now, and I mean, it's easy. It's always easy to look in retrospect and have that clarity. But the way I look at it now, the strength in who I am, it comes in being honest and acknowledging what's right and what's wrong, not in continually exploiting something that deep down I know is a wrong thing to support, and that's the meat industry. I'm an alpha male. I don't need to fucking prove that anymore. I don't need to go and eat a raw steak or fucking shoot an animal or hunt. An alpha in my mind is someone that stands up for what's right. And I think one of the most right things it can do is to protect the vulnerable, and animals sit at the top of that list, right up there at the top of that list. And as an alpha, or just as a human, I don't want to fuck with something that can't protect itself. And as you said before, you don't want to pay someone else to do your dirty work for you. And that's essentially it. I mean, if you want to go out there and do it yourself, you got to live with yourself with who you are, but don't fucking hide. Don't hide behind a shopping aisle, behind a piece of packaged meat and pretend it doesn't happen. Because I mean, the consequences beyond us as individuals and what it does to our conscience and what it does to our health, the consequences, it's the greatest negative environmental impact on this planet. And it's the cause of the death and suffering of over 100 billion animals a year on this planet. And it's ridiculous. And we dig in the grave of our civilization with our appetites. I mean, not only from an environmental and nature standpoint, but I mean, the health issues we have. We look at heart disease, look at cancer. I mean, you guys are familiar with cancer, and I'm sorry, with the death of your father,
thank you.
A couple of years ago now. But it's so many cancers, and that can be prevented. It's a dietary thing. It's the way. It's the food. Look at it. If you put shit fuel in a car, the car's going to perform badly, and it's the same with us. You've got diabetes, you've got heart disease, you've got all these different issues that we spend so much money on. We spend trillions of dollars trying to fix this shit that's preventable. And, we can I often say we can do more by doing less. I'm not saying doing less. It's about what we consume. It's about what we buy, what we purchase, how we live. And we can do a whole lot more by not wanting to have all that stuff. A whole lot more for the environment, a whole lot more for ourselves in terms of our health, but not only our bodily health, but our mental health as well. I mean, the single best thing I've done in my life is go vegan. Didn't even have to get out of bed in the morning, and I'm already doing the best thing I can possibly do for this planet and for myself and for animals. Just not stick them in your mouth. It's the easiest way to protect an animal, and the weight, the lift off your conscience from doing that, from not harming something. Nobody wants to go out and strangle an animal or put a gun to the head of an animal and pull the trigger, or something innocent, something that can't defend itself. A child, it's who would want to do that to something that can't defend itself? And that's, coming back to what I said before, would I change anything in my life? Yeah, I would have woken up earlier. But, we can't change the past. We can only look forward. And that's my question to everybody. It's not about what's happened in the past, but seriously, with what we know today in terms of what the meat industry does to this planet, does to us as humans, does to animals as sentient beings that have the exact same capacity to suffer, that have the same want to build family structures, to have shelter, to have safety. How can we do something to them that we wouldn't be willing to do to another human being without it being classified as torture or murder? And if you do want to continue being a part of that, you've got to ask yourself why. Why do you want to be a part of that system?
That was, well said. Yeah.
I also wish that I had that realization earlier, that it came earlier for me, and that's kind of like the one thing. If I have any regrets in life, that's the one thing that I'd say it is. I wish that my eyes had been open to the fact that, animals were dying at my dollar.
Mm-hmm.
I was hidden from that, and part of it, I guess, I can excuse because I was very young, and then, but as I was older and I was able to think for myself, I remember speaking with vegan friends, because I live in Los Angeles, so you come in contact with a lot of vegans out here. And I had this preconceived notion that vegans were weak and they weren't getting the necessary nutrients they needed, all because of false marketing and propaganda and things like that from the animal industry. Yeah. And I knew someone that was born vegan. So his mother was vegetarian and he just didn't like dairy. And so I think of him as a cousin. He's a bit younger than me. He's 15 now. And he was having trouble growing, and he just simply because he's a late bloomer. You know what I mean? He's hitting puberty a little bit later than his friends, and that's totally fine. We did as well. But it had nothing to really do with his nutrient intake and veganism and stuff like that. And I was convinced because of the shit that I believed, without even doing research, just the things that I've heard, that he needed to eat meat in order to grow. And I convinced him to eat meat prior to going vegan, about a year prior to going vegan. And so I didn't. I'm not claiming that I'm better than anyone or I didn't make mistakes or do anything. I'm vegan just for animals, and that's really the sole reason. It's not to try to one up somebody else or be as healthy as I can and shit on people that like eating junk food. I like eating junk food too.
Vegan junk food.
There's a lot of vegan junk food. A lot of people believe that it's not a diet. It's just a lifestyle.
When I land in the States, the first thing I do is hit the supermarket. I'll go and drop my stuff at the hotel room, go and hit the supermarket. I'm getting all the fake meats and cheeses and fucking all that stuff, the mayonnaises, and coming back to my hotel room and putting on HBO, and I'm going to sit there and watch that and just drop crumbs and stuff all through the bed. I love it. In Africa, we don't have, at least in Zimbabwe, we don't have access to all that good junk food stuff. So I do miss
here we go.
And I'm the same, man. I'm not in it for the diet or nutrition or anything like that. I don't want to be the strongest dude or the fastest dude, or I just don't want to fuck with animals.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, I think another thing that people worry about with veganism is accessibility. And you just talked about you're in Zimbabwe. Well, it's very easy for me to go out and get vegan food here in LA. There's plenty of vegan restaurants, thankfully. But I can imagine it's quite different in Zimbabwe. So where do you get your vegan food there?
Well, so I mean, I love to cook. So actually, after Iraq, I watched. I was actually on a flight, an Emirates flight to Iraq, and I was on Anthony Bourdain's show. It was in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and he's just traveling around and doing what he did and talking and just jumping fences and cooking with some random grandmother in the suburbs. And I was like, shit, I want to be a chef. This looks amazing. And I'd always loved cooking. I always loved food. And it's the same still in Zimbabwe. I mean, I went on to do what I do, but there was basically a fork in the road. I was going to go down to Cape Town and study culinary school there. But I didn't. And I've now realized I'd rather cook for 10 people, 10 friends coming over than cook for 500 people. So, but I do love cooking. I do love food, gardening. We've got awesome gardens at our place. And so in Zimbabwe, not having access to, all this fast foods and that sort of stuff, a lot of this processed type food, we have to cook everything from pretty much scratch. So it's healthy, where all your food is coming from, what's going in there. And then like beyond that, inside my household, like our programs, and I'm sure we'll get onto it later, we've got a growing force of women doing one of the toughest jobs in one of the most remote locations in one of the harshest places on the planet. And they're thriving at it, they're kicking ass, they're all doing it on a plant-based diet. We have a program called Back to Black Roots, which is focusing on teaching all our staff, their families, their communities about plant-based living from a nutritional, ethical, and environmental standpoint, how to grow your own food, how to plan your own meals, how to cook it, how to take it home, and most importantly, why. Not just, you got to do this, but the why. And, the why for a lot of us is the big factor. And it's been going amazingly well. I mean, not just in the results of what the women have been getting, the way they're performing, but the growth of it. We're working in communities that have very little access to healthcare. And so the best medicine we can give them is prevention. And prevention in terms of what most of these people are facing as health issues, diabetes, heart disease, cancers, stroke, is diet. It all comes down to diet, and it's right under our noses.
That's crazy, and that's something that I realized after going vegan. So I went vegan for the animals, and then I realized, I'm doing it, for myself as well. Just how much healthier a plant-based diet is for you. I didn't realize, and just speaking openly, my dad passed away of cancer, and he told me, he's like, I really do believe that the way I ate is the reason why I got cancer, and now knowing all that I know about animal products, it's probable. It definitely is probable, and it's just great that you're teaching people why. It's very important to know, and it's something that I didn't know, and I wish I knew sooner so I could share the information with my dad. And now I've shared it with the rest of my family. My mom went vegan, and I'm really happy about that. But yeah, I had no clue about the health benefits, and I actually found out all of that in the Game Changers documentary, which is one of my favorite documentaries of all time, and that's where I discovered you, and briefly saw a little bit about what you do in Zimbabwe. And then I saw Akashinga, and just the trailer alone dropped chills beyond belief.
Yeah, it was chills to the point where like my beard hairs were sticking up and my eyes were watering at that last shot where all of your Rangers and your force were lined up just looking at the camera. It was just like I haven't been touched by a piece of content, let alone a piece of content that short in so long. So I want to dive into Akashinga and the things that you're doing. It's an anti-poaching foundational organization. What do you call it?
The IAPF, International Anti-Poaching Foundation. Yeah, so we started in 2009, literally when I arrived. Back a step from that, I arrived and started traveling around, getting involved with, or trying to get involved with various conservation efforts. Sorry, hiccups. Various conservation efforts, and sort of closed doors here and there. And I think people sensed that I had the wrong intentions. I was over there for the adventure, and I was talking to people that have been involved with conservation. In some cases, for decades, it was their life, it was their passion, it was their everything. And and they sensed I was trying to have an adventure on their coattails type thing. And eventually, I managed to get a foot in the door with an anti-poaching unit in Zimbabwe, just working with them, spending time out in the field, living with them, training them, just seeing how little resources they have, having come from working in Iraq and being part of special operations units, just having absolutely everything and working in systems that have billions of dollars a year pumped into them. And in retrospect, for something that I actually by then didn't really believe in. We don't think I need to dive too deeply into the Iraq War and what it was about. But on the other hand, seeing Rangers that were doing what they're doing, and it inspired me. I don't know. It really is inspiring. But at the same time, they live bloody tough lives there. I mean, they live out in remote locations for almost a year at a time, away from their families, and they do go home just for a couple of weeks. They get paid a few $100 a month. So here's me making $250,000 a year, and these guys are making, a couple of $1,000 a year, and for what? I was fighting for lines on a map and resources in the ground. These guys are fighting for literally the heart and lungs of the planet. So that's it made me reflect on who I was as a person, and that reflection made me question who I was as a person, and realize that I wasn't happy with the reflection I was seeing. And that was the beginning of a changing point for me. And I will say one thing about a trait I have is to be able to call bullshit on myself very quickly and make significant and rapid changes in a very short space of time, such as going vegan. And it was the same about looking at myself in the mirror, about the person that I was at the time. I was being that person and not enjoying it. Alongside working with rangers, there was the whole animals thing that was going on, and we were doing patrols of the rangers. I was going with the animals, the threats they were facing, a few different particular cases. One that really sticks out for me, the most prominent, something that I still, as though I saw it yesterday, sticks in my mind is a buffalo. So a Cape buffalo is one of the most powerful and fearsome animals in Africa. The rangers can look at the ground and determine how long she'd been there by the age of the tracks. And they said, when they came across her, she'd been there for 3 days, struggling. And underneath her skin, you could hear broken bones rubbing. She's withering. So you've got one of the most animals that you're the most fearful of when you're out on patrol. And you got this thing trapped on the ground, just withering around in its own shit. And there was nothing left for us to do but to euthanize her. And when we did, she started giving birth to a stillborn calf. And that was something that stuck with me. That's that was when I decided to liquidate what I had in Australia and set up the International Anti-Poaching Foundation. That was October 13th, 2009. So that was the beginning of the organisation, where we are today. We started off as a fairly militant organisation in terms of the training we're providing. We're training rangers that are going out to protect the most targeted animals, so elephant and rhinoceros. The reason they were targeted the most is because of the value of the horn and the tusk, predominantly into Southeast Asia. Rhino horn is selling for up to $35,000 a pound. A rhino can easily have 20 pounds of horn on it. So here you've got an animal that should be locked in a safe, running around an area the size of a small country, with a horn worth millions of dollars stuck on a snout. So we were training rangers to go out and protect that, and we scaled up as an organisation, took on bigger and bigger roles, protecting greater areas, greater populations of rhino and elephant in more high threat regions. And we got very good at what we did. And there was a certain point I travel a lot to the US, lecture, and my lectures used to start with, I know what we're doing is not the right thing, but I want you to think of us and our formula as a paramedic. We're trying to get the situation to the operating table till someone with a better formula or a better solution can come along and do something else. And that's what we were. We're just trying to stop the hemorrhaging. And that's what this sort of shock action, this militarized version of conservation was doing. But there came a time in Mozambique around 2017 where we were operating in an area protecting up to a third of the world's remaining rhinoceros, and ground zero of where most rhinos on the planet were being killed each year.
So you said earlier that a rhino horn is worth millions of dollars in Southeast Asia. Do you know why they value it so much? What is it being sold for?
I heard somewhere that it was like an aphrodisiac. People were thinking that it was some.
What exactly?
That's actually that's a Western-fed philosophy. It's a myth. It's not actually true. It's used as it's got two main uses. One is within traditional medicine, where it's been used in Vietnam and China for as far back as 3,000 years. And the other use now is a status-related good. And Vietnam is a rising economic superpower in Southeast Asia. People don't tend to travel externally a lot. They stay at home and spend a rising disposable income on consumer-related goods. Buying rhino horn there is like buying a fucking Rolex or a Ferrari in America. It's this consumerism type mindset where we use goods to try and demonstrate wealth or status, or it's like an extension of ego. And that's the same thing in Asia with rhino horn. And I mean, for us to get up from the traditional medicine side, for us to get up and say it doesn't work and why don't they research it? And I mean, if you go to Vietnam, you go to Hanoi. I mean, in Vietnam, more than a third of people use a form of traditional medicine at least once a week. There's in Hanoi, there's entire city blocks that are 4-story high traditional medicine hospitals. There's traditional medicine ambulances racing around town. I mean, it is so deeply ingrained into society. It's deeply ingrained as DNA itself. And for us to think that, just because we come in with this Western form of medicine and think that it's, we've got all the answers when these guys have been doing it for thousands of years, it's a little arrogant. But a lot of people say because it's made out of keratin, it's just the same thing as fingernails, and what are you guys doing? It's not. I mean, if you've grown up, we know about the placebo effect. If you've grown up and your great grandmother has done something, she taught to her grandmother, which taught to your mother, and then your mother passed it on to you. This is how we do things. You believe it. Yeah. It's a cure, and it's. I mean, for us to turn around and say, we've run this thing through the lab, and sorry, but it doesn't work. I mean, it's arrogant and it's ignorant. So it is. I mean, there's organisations that are working as much in the demand reduction side as what we are working on the ground in Africa to try and prevent animals from being killed. And that's how. I mean, if you look at the different areas we have to try and fight, we're talking about demand reduction. We're talking about transnational crime, so the trafficking of this. We're talking about government regulations and policy change, tougher penalties. We're talking about community development, poverty alleviation in Africa, and you talk about law enforcement and area protection. These are the multiple angles that we have to continuously fight a battle like this on. There's many fronts, and it's not just the front and the half of the rhino. I mean, you look at. I mean, tigers becoming increasingly endangered or critically endangered, and so all of a sudden lions become the next thing because there's a shortage of tiger bones. Now lion bones become the next hype. So we don't know what is going to be next. One thing I can guarantee you, we're never going to be out of work, unfortunately, and that's the reality of what we do. We may get on top of one situation, but the threat is always going to be there as long as these animals hold a value. It's just another currency within organised crime, alongside guns, drugs, human trafficking, child prostitution. It's all there, and this is just another dollar sign for them to try and get their hands on. And so that's why we do what we do.
So I've also seen you speak before about believing that the armed forces and military is a man's job, and then completely changing your perspective and now starting a a force of Rangers that are women only?
Not necessarily the military. The units I was a part of, they were exclusively for men, whether being for the diving branch or being with special operations. Whether I liked it or not, or whether we wanted it or not, it was a man's job. I remember when I was part of the diving branch, we had a university come and do studies on us, trying to develop basically a rollout plan for women to be able to get into the branch. And it's a locker room vote amongst the lads. We'd rather make our standards harder to get into this unit than work alongside women. And this is just purely ego.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's purely ego, And then I've built a career now across 3 continents in training men, breaking them down just like I was broken down, and rebuilding them into what we need for frontline deployment. And I never worked with women once, never deployed with a woman once. I'm never part of a training program I put together or delivered, never part of an operation or a mission that I ran. And so in 2017, when we started looking at alternate models to what we'd been doing, and what we were doing was the same shit that I'd done my whole life. I was just replicating something that worked in a military sense, in a conservation sense. Why not? I didn't have anything else to go off. And I came into conservation at a time when it was becoming increasingly militarized, as the rhino wars were starting, and seeing 35,000 elephants a year being killed for their tusks, for their ivory. And I fitted the mold perfectly. So I came in at the right time for me and just did what I knew. And then 2017, trying to change things, trying to look at different models, how we can shift things up or sideways or whatever it may be, but just not keep doing the same thing and expecting a different or a better outcome. And at the time, as an industry, I think if we were getting it right, the situation would have been much better. We were looking at other industries that were getting ahead by getting more women on the boards, more women as CEOs, more women in management. Conservation was essentially in the Stone Ages. Women in frontline positions are outnumbered by men at a ratio of somewhere between 70 and 100 to 1. So there's a lot of women that are in, either on checkpoints or sitting on gates or walking fences. They're not doing the actual job. They're not given the opportunity to do the full range of jobs and skills that a man would do. And so that means they don't get the opportunity to gain the experience needed to be able to rise up and go into a management position. And so if they're not able to do that in an industry where to be a manager, you need to have that full range of experience, because when shit goes south very quickly and people's lives are in your hands, and the decisions you make, you need to be able to make the right one. And if you don't have that wealth of experience, you can't make it. And so from that standpoint, we're getting left behind. And I looked at other organizations that were involving women. It was very sort of tokenist. Women were given a weapon and a uniform, and they get the pictures holding the rifle for social media or whatever, or fundraising. And so that sort of undermined the women in terms of them being used in that way. It undermined the men of actually doing the job that the women were being put forward as the sort of the poster. And so I've got all these things going around in my head. I've got my background, and just my thought process in going down this path was completely against everything that had been ingrained in me throughout my military career and operational career in Iraq and everything I've done in conservation so far. And the final, I suppose, and we were discussing this as an organisation at the time. We were going around, saying, maybe we should try this, and how would we do it? And it was sort of getting a bit of pushback, and even me, I was sort of on the fence. And then I was actually on a speaking tour, and I was in New York at the time, and I read an article in the New York Times about the US Army Rangers training women in preparation for frontline deployment, and that was significant for the average reader. That was significant as a step in terms of US military deployments. For me, it was a bit more personal. Almost to the month, a decade before reading that article, I was in northern Baghdad and we were on a mission heading north, and then so our convoy got hit coming through a checkpoint. There's a few people killed at the checkpoint. We quickly surrounded. So I had a Dushka anti-aircraft gun held to my head. And we were fucked. So it's like this is it. I was actually like in the vehicle with my best mate. We're in a 4-vehicle convoy. They're trying to pull guys out of the first vehicle. It's like, fuck, what the fuck? This is it. And the US Army Rangers came in and got us out and got us back to the nearest forward operating base, got us back there safely. And reading that article in New York, I thought, well, if that unit that fucking got my ass out of the shit that time is now training and deploying women like this, then maybe women should be wildlife rangers as well, not just US Army Rangers. And that's where the start of this program came from.
That's amazing.
Well, so I've also heard you speak on your belief that women are very like defensive and protective of, we know that, female dogs are very protective of their offspring, and and bears over their cubs. The mama bear. It's a common term used. So basically, I guess what I want to say is you work with only female rangers in your.
We started this program and we started the organization in 2009. It wasn't until 2017 in August that we started the first trial. So we had to negotiate with the chiefs, the traditional leaders, local council to do this program. It's a very patriarchal society. In their eyes, a woman's job is with the family in the fields. It's definitely not being a wildlife ranger. Being an armed wildlife ranger, one of the toughest and most respected jobs, one of the most dangerous jobs, and demanding. And there was a lot of pushback initially, and we had to negotiate. We eventually got given a 72-hour window to put them through selection, and we had to condense down what we would have done in the military into 72 hours, which happened to be longer than we would have done with the men. But we had to find a balance between having enough time to prove this program, but to put the women through a tougher selection process than the men, because in the eyes of everyone, they had so much more to prove. So we normally would just do a basic 24-hour selection for the men and be able to figure out who the guys are going to be to go on course. So we made it 72 hours with the women, 3 times longer. The chiefs, they were happy. I said 72 hours. And basically that was our time to fail, or the window of opportunity for the women to fail. And they fucking blew it out of the water. They were just tough as nails. And so all the women that we selected, the criteria were survivors of serious sexual assault, domestic violence, AIDS, orphans, single mothers, and abandoned wives. And there was no particular reason behind that other than I'm an Aussie, and like you guys, we like to fight for the underdog. So if this program goes anywhere and people get a job after it, then let's give it to the people that need it the most. And that was the women in these communities that come from that particular background. So very quickly it went from the women having to prove themselves to us as instructors, regrouping and say, shit, this is going to happen. This shit's real, and these women are going to go live in an area that had lost 8,000 elephants in the previous 16 years prior to their arrival. So we 8,000 times teams of armed men had come into an area willing to kill elephants or anything standing in their way. And we were about to start up this program that was starting to get a lot of media attention and send women out there into harm's way. And so that's we started the training program. Put what initially was 16 women through the course. We now have there's 240 staff. All our rangers and all our scouts are women. We've scaled from 1 reserve. We have 8 reserves now right across the Zambezi Valley. We're in the process of moving into a second entire region, which itself is a massive, huge landscape spanning over 250 miles, similar to the landscape we have in Zimbabwe. And so we're on target now. We should have around 1,000 women by 2026, 2025, 2026. COVID slowed us all down a bit, but yeah, it's I mean, it's changed the way that I look at conservation. It's changed the way a lot of other organisations are doing things. It's changed the way that we look at community development in areas surrounding conservation areas. I mean, some of the things that the key components of what we look at, women naturally de-escalate tension. So instead of having this, I mean, my background is counterinsurgency warfare. My job was to go out and look for a fight and finish it. These women have, they tend to want to talk to a problem before they shoot it or blow it up. And so that when you're trying to have a relationship with 10,000 people that live along the border of an area you're trying to protect, it's something far more valuable than biceps and bullets. This interpersonal relationship with the people in a community that the grandparents raised their parents in, and that the parents raised these women in, and that these women are raising their own families in. There's nothing more powerful than local relationships. I don't care who you are, where you come from. There's no example in history of an occupying force coming in and having a long-term good relationship with the local community. Relationships start within the community, and that's where they finish. And these women, I mean, it comes naturally to them. So we actually spend about a third per acre per annum protecting the areas we're protecting now than what we did in other projects, because we don't have helicopters and military grade hardware and all these massive amounts of firepower and aircraft and all this stuff. We have women who are given basic training, the right equipment, the right leadership, and the right motivation. They all believe their job is the most important job in the world, and they all come from a community that they're going to grow up in. And that's a very powerful thing. And particularly when you look at, I watched with great interest the law enforcement issues in America last year, and I've got buddies that work in law enforcement over there, and a lot of them will say, people get employed into communities that they're not from, so they sign up for a police department, they get sent, they go out and work in an area they didn't grow up in. They're not going to raise their family there. They're just sent there for a few years or whatever it may be. I don't know exactly what it is about a woman. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it is, but they want to calm shit down. They want to cool. They want to chill, as opposed to this antagonistic nature of escalating tension and pressure. And so that for us has been a key ingredient. The other one, so Zimbabwe ranks at the moment about 157 out of 175 countries on the Global Corruption Index. It's one of the most corrupt countries in the world. So think of Denmark as number one, Zimbabwe 157. So just being able to remove corruption from the equation of what we're doing brings us halfway to achieving whatever it is we're trying to do. And with the women so far, we haven't had a single instance of corruption. So historically, we would employ men from 100, 200 miles away. We'd bring them in to protect an area. And the reason why we do that is to avoid collusion from communities that they may have grown up with. Giving information out to people in the community about where elephants or rhinos are going to be, so the poachers can come and kill those animals. Giving information about where they're going to be patrolling, so the poachers could avoid those patrols. And then they would go home. And what they did is it dispensed the biggest line item in our budgets, which is wildlife rangers' salaries. They dispensed that around the country. So when these men would go home, they'd take their salaries home. Now with the women, most of the women come within about 14 miles of the area that we protect, of the boundary of the area we protect. So it puts the largest line item in our budget direct into the community, not at government level, but at household level, into the hands of women. And women spend around 80 to 90% of their salary on family and local community versus a male that spends 30 to 40%. So we the whole bottom line triple gears in terms of that community investment. And it's the single most effective dollar that can be spent on community development. So we shifted the strategy on wildlife conservation. We put women's empowerment at the center of the strategy. That gives us the greatest traction in community development, and conservation became the byproduct.
Yeah. So it seems like IAPF is this umbrella, and then beneath it is, firstly, I guess, anti-poaching, what it stands for, the acronym stands for, and then underneath that you have so many things that are just as important. And you're really just, through wildlife conservation, also rebuilding the foundation of the communities that surround the areas that you're protecting. And that's amazing.
So
I want you to just No worries. Because we went over it pretty fast, but I want to get into the women that you have as rangers. They come from households where they've been abandoned with their families and various illnesses and assault. So I want to talk about how that all came to be in the beginning when you were recruiting.
I was, when we put the criteria together, I was actually working with a mate, an Aussie filmmaker, a guy called Adrian Stern. We were like literally brainstorming the selection process, and that's when we came up with this criteria. And so we're like, yeah, cool, and then the women started coming in. There were 87 women initially, and we sat there and we listened over 2 days. We listened to all their stories, and it's probably the toughest 2 days of my life, up there anyway. Listening to the stories of these women, where they came from, just fucking brutal hardship, and it made me ashamed to be a man, not because of having done anything directly to these women, but having been part of the same system that oppresses women in other places. And these women weren't victims of circumstance; they were all victims of men. Their saboks, their village heads, were there verifying all the stories that they were telling us. And it's not good, guys. But like to see where they've come from now. From their first days, or the first day walking down to selection, and they're being told to piss off, go back home, go back to the field, go back to the family, go back to the kitchen. To seeing them now, they've made over 300 arrests, and completely shifted the mindset of the majority of the community. And not all the community believes that they're doing the right thing, or that the women should be doing this job. But after 300 arrests, they damn well respect it. And there's been this form of social engineering that's been taking place in where women are now seen at the forefront of conservation, at the forefront of law enforcement, as leaders in the community. They're like rock stars to young kids, young boys and young girls, particularly young girls. And just what they've done with their lives and their salaries. And most of the women that have been with us for 18 months or longer have bought their own land and built their own house. And for a lot of them, that means getting their families back together. Particularly some of the cases. Look at Callie, she was I think raped at the age of 16 or 17, had a child to a rapist, and unable to afford to look after the child. A daughter, whose name is Yearn Cleopatra, unable to look after her, and that in Shona culture, that means the child is taken from the mother and given to the parents of the father. And so when Kelly came to us, she hadn't seen her daughter. Her name is Yearn Cleopatra. Hadn't seen her for I think around 2.5 years. And so she came to do selection, and like for her, selection wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about getting a job or a salary. I mean, for her, it was about seeing her daughter. It was about getting her daughter back. And so, I mean, I don't think there could ever be anything more on the line than fighting for the life of your child and the right to be able to see her. In which case, she wouldn't have that opportunity. And that's the thing about these women. Like, it's none of them have been given anything. They all did it harder than we've the opportunities that we created for males, and that's all they had. That's all they had is an opportunity. And they're the ones that made the most of it. But she came on the course. She smashed the course. She went away. She started working as a ranger. She saved the money. She bought land. She built a house, and together we took this to court. And she walked away from court with full custody of her daughter. Was able to bring her daughter back to that house. So yeah, it's to be able to see. Every one of the women has a story, not as the same, but they're each one is emotionally tough, and each one of the struggles is as deep as the other.
Wow. The training process of the women, you've spoken about training men before in Iraq, and how does it compare to the training process of men? So when you're training the women, the results of that compared to training men and recruiting them?
The training's the same. We put them through the same. We don't make any concessions or changes or. Like the first group of women we put through, we started with 37 after 3 days. Only 3 had pulled off, and I remember training a group of 189 men about 8 years earlier in Victoria Falls, and after 24 hours, I think we had like 2 or 3 left.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
That says a lot.
Definitely speaks volumes.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's a woman-wide thing or if it was just with the women that we'd selected, and the fact that we thought we were putting them through hell. The reality was they'd already been through it and they survived, and anything that we were throwing at them was nothing compared to what they came from or still to go back to.
So what exactly is the training process like for Akashinga?
And is Akashinga, what is Akashinga in relation to, what is Akashinga in relation to IAPF? Is that what the Rangers call themselves? It's what the force is?
Yeah, so we have 2 programs as an organization. One is called Akashinga, and that is, so what we do is we go into long-term partnerships with local Indigenous communities to manage large tracts of wilderness land. And the model that we use to protect those areas is called Akashinga. So women recruited from local communities to go out and protect those areas. We do a number of community development programs from health, water, education, roads, power. And what we did is we started focusing from the inside of a wilderness area and working outwards to focusing from the community and working back in. So that's one program. And we have one landscape at the moment, being the Zambezi Valley, with the second landscape that we're shifting into it, hopefully by the end of the year in Mozambique. The other program that we focus on is Lead Ranger. So that's the identification, training and mentoring of leaders from existing conservation organizations, be they government, NGO, or private sector. And so we build the capacity within those organizations. So learning becomes ongoing. To date, we've identified and trained 44 instructors across 4 countries that oversee a workforce of around 1,100 wildlife rangers that help protect around 14 million acres of African wilderness each year.
How does it feel to be doing that much hands-on work? Like you must be seeing the amazing progress that you're making for these communities and the wildlife out there firsthand. And
how does it feel?
Yeah, it feels good. It's and I'll say this, people listening out there, and I don't classify myself as having always been a good person or a kind person, but it really is. It's about taking that first step, and the thing about doing, you guys will know, doing good things, it becomes infectious. You do one good thing and it feels good. So in a way, it's sort of selfish. You do a good thing and it makes you feel good, but it's better than doing something for yourself. If you're just doing stuff for yourself all the time, you sort of become selfish, introverted. But when you put one foot in front of the other in something like this, it's infectious. You want to do more, and for us as an organization, we were fortunate enough to be able to scale, and we've got big visions, big plans, and we're on a great trajectory in terms of where we're going and what we're doing. So we've got 2 amazing programs, and literally it took us 7 years to figure out what we do as an organization. 7 years of doing different stuff here and there, and then over the last sort of 4 years, it's really super refined, it becomes super effective. And if these are the only 2 things in terms of wildlife conservation that I do for the rest of my life, then I couldn't think of 2 better things to do. So I'm happy and I'm passionate about what we do. And I think above all, I've got what is the most elusive thing in life, and that's purpose. And being able to refine that purpose after the military, I think, is often the missing ingredient. To have that, that's I'm grateful for it. And yes, that's I know a lot of us just get caught up doing shit that we're not passionate about, or we're doing stuff for other people, and it's someone else's dream or someone else's job. And It's just, follow your dreams. So, it's hard too. I remember being 15 years old, having to choose the subjects I was going to do when I was 16 and 17 that would maybe get me into a university or college degree when I was 18 or 19, to decide what the fuck I was going to study for the next 4 years, to determine what I do for the next decade or two. It's like you don't have those answers when you're 15 years old. You've got to go out, you've got to experience the world. And, so just people, I know there's a lot of young listeners out there. It's like, follow your heart, follow your passion, be your own person. Don't pretend to be someone else. And it's better to be respected than it is to be liked. And people will respect who you are for what you do, not what you try to be or pretend to be, or who you're trying to live up to. Live your own life and carve your own path.
I agree with that. Respect over just being liked. Yeah, and you definitely live an extremely purposeful life, and
you have our respect,
admirable.
All of it. Yeah, man.
All the respect.
And to wrap things up on speaking about what you're doing with IAPF, do you have a general estimate of the amount of animal lives that you've saved? Between elephants, rhinos.
The thing is about nature too, and this whole feeds back into the vegan movement, and it's not just counting elephants and rhinos, but it's about all animals, all different shapes and sizes, whether they're a snake or a bird or even the insects in the areas that we protect. So for us, it's about biodiversity and protecting large tracts of land and wilderness areas, and the knowledge that within those wilderness areas, there's literally billions of different forms of life that are going about their daily business because we're doing what we do. From the larger animals and the mammals, the counts that we've done, I know that in the first area, the pilot area that we started to protect, there's been a 400% increase in wildlife sightings since we started. Nature rebounds very quickly if it's just given one thing, and that's a chance. If it's given a chance, it will come back and start to repopulate. If it's not given a chance, that area will die off. And when the nature's gone, people will come and cut down the trees. They'll start digging up the soil, they'll settle there, the water stops flowing, and then that area is lost. Our future as a civilization is dependent on our willingness to preserve biodiversity, not just the sexy animals. And at a time when civilization has been brought to its knees by a small scaly anteater and some bats, and we got to ask ourselves, do we need to talk about shutting down wildlife, wet markets in China, or perhaps stopping those animals from reaching there in the first place? And I think rangers do one of the most important jobs in the world, and stopping animals from getting out of nature and protecting biodiversity. Who knows what pandemics have been stopped in the past or what will be stopped in the future?
Yep, definitely. All right, so just to wrap things up, something that Grayson and I have been wanting to ask. We see that you have this badass tattoo across your chest that reads "Seek and Destroy."
Yeah.
Can you tell me, what the inspiration behind that was?
Rip that out there.
There it is.
Destroy. Yeah,
that's fucking hard.
Yeah, I suppose that was all part of the combination, part of the persona you're trying to fulfill. Took a decade to grow into, actually, and I got that when I was quite young. It literally took a decade to be able to carry that with mutual respect from my peers. But yeah, just a silly soldier's way of gaining some extra motivation before going out and doing some bad shit.
And has the meaning changed over time to what you're doing now? Is there a different way that you're seeking and destroying? Maybe
no,
maybe these
not
posers.
Really, hey. But that's the thing about a tattoo; it's stuck there forever. So
yeah, I got some too that I grew out of the meaning quite fast.
It is what. Maybe I'll get some flowers and stuff around there one day.
There you go. Well, Damien, I guess we'll wrap it up here. We covered really amazing things, and we just really want to thank you for coming on the podcast, and also for doing so much for this planet and all the beings that populate it,
and giving these animals a chance, and giving women of the community a chance as well. It's very special. It's very important. Very inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, gentlemen.
When we can, we'd love to come visit if there was any way that we could get out there and do some hands-on stuff. Like, that sounds like something I'd be very interested in.
Bring it on. Yeah,
all right.
Awesome.
We'll be in touch. Yeah.
All right.
Sweet.
Sounds good,
We'll
Damien.
keep our word on that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Damien. Appreciate it.
Wow.
Wow.
I feel a huge shift in my brain.
That conversation really inspired me to do things hands-on that have a perpetual effect and benefit on communities that will last for generations. I really want to do that, and that's something that Damien's inspired me to do. Definitely want to take a trip out to Zimbabwe and see the amazing things that he's doing on the ground. I just feel like it would be an insane experience, and I feel like I just experienced it through Zoom in a conversation.
And through his storytelling, I feel like I could really imagine everything that he said. And I'm so grateful that we were able to have him on. We discovered Damien in a documentary that we love called The Game Changers. And Damien, he had such a badass part of that documentary. And we're like, who is this guy? And I reached out, and he was so nice. So he cleared his schedule well, not cleared his schedule, but he made time for this podcast very fast. And, he's just a very great gentleman.
Amazing guy.
Yes.
He also did a documentary with National Geographic. It's called Akashinga, produced by James Cameron, and it was the most chill-dropping documentary I've ever watched in my life. It's only 12 minutes long. It's a short. And if you guys want to just watch the trailer, it's like a minute long. I guarantee you'll get goosebumps. It's the most amazing piece of content that I've ever seen.
And if you have 12 more minutes, which first of all, thank you for listening to this episode. And if you have 12 more minutes right now, and you want to check out the short documentary Akashinga, I would recommend you watch it. It's amazing and life-changing.
Now, we figured out the spread positivity shout-outs. Grayson came up with the genius idea of doing voice memo DMs.
Yes. It's like the new age voicemail.
I don't think...
Who has a fucking voicemail anymore?
Yeah, you're right. We were trying to set up a voicemail.
You remember when you were a kid and your voicemail was like, hello? I can't hear you. And you got all your friends.
Oh, yeah.
But now we're just doing voice memos because it's more clear and
no one can prank us by saying hello.
We can see the profile that's sending us the message. So this is Anna, and we're going to listen to Anna, who is she was also very nice and gave a little
context
rundown, a little context of who she was shouting out, and it is her best friend V.
Let's hear it.
And this is Anna.
My spread positivity shout out goes to my best friend, V, simply because she has to be one of the strongest people I know. She struggled with severe mental health issues for the longest time now, and she's also had to deal with the loss of her father in 2019. And through it all, she's just been incredible. She kept pushing through, and she now is a teacher, just like her dad was. And I love seeing her do what she loves and inspiring others, especially me, because I've been lucky enough to be her friend for 10 years, and I admire so much. She inspires me every day, and I can only hope she'll inspire someone listening to this too. Thank you so much, guys.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Thanks,
from
Anna.
Portugal. And thank you so much to your friend V, who sounds like an amazing inspiration. As many of you know, Ethan and I also lost our father in 2019, and that's
it's tough to bounce back from.
Yeah, it's something that you can't prepare for, and something you never want to even think about. And when it happens, it's really hard to focus on anybody but yourself because you're dealing with so much.
Yeah.
And
to be honest, it made us spiral out of control in a lot of ways, in ways that we didn't even realize while it was going on. But looking back in retrospect, it definitely messed us up for a while.
Yeah.
And for your friend V to bounce back and take after her father and be a teacher and give back to a community that he's no longer able to give back to is just really it's really special, and something that I'm sure V, if you're listening, your father would honor and really appreciate. So you're doing great things for you and your family and your father's legacy.
And thank you, V, and all the strength to you and your family in recovering from your loss. And I'm very sorry to hear about that. But you seem like an amazing individual. And thank you to your friend Anna for sharing that. Guys, I love the spread positivity shout-outs. And
if you guys want to nominate someone, and that someone could be yourself, and we encourage you to do so, because positivity is perpetual. It goes around and inspires others. And like Damien said earlier on the podcast, he said positivity is
infectious.
And it definitely is. It's
and if you've done something good, let us know about it. We want to recognize you. A lot of drama and shit like that makes media headlines nowadays, and we're trying to be our own kind of sort of
drama-free outlet.
Yeah.
Because I'm tired of the fucking drama too, guys. So yeah, just voice memo us on the Deeper account. That's @Deeper on Instagram, and let us know what you or your peers have done to spread positivity.
Also, Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you are not subscribed to this channel, we are going to be podcasting every Thursday, having different guests of all walks of life on here so that we can learn from them about the things that they're doing. Our main focus is to give people a platform to speak about the amazing things that they're doing to make a difference.
And also to learn. You know, we're very honored to have people like Damien on. So, you know, to gain knowledge about things that are going on in this world that we can, you know, be of help to if possible. And I don't know, just it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good even just learning about what you can do.
So if you guys are down for that, subscribe. And we'll see you next Thursday or speak to you next Thursday. We also do audio only if you just want to like throw this on while you're on a drive or something like that. I know a lot of you are into that. I am myself. We have our podcast on all streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, everywhere else you get your podcast, and then also here on YouTube we have the video version.
Apple Podcast, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, Apple Podcast.
Same thing.
Enough said. I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll speak and see you next week.
See you on Thursday.